Lesson 10, we're at the halfway point of our 20 sessions. Lord willing, today, my goal in this class is to ask you this question: will you stay connected to God to the very end? Now, Bonnie and I travel all the time, and our phones come on and off because parts of the world don't have good cell phone coverage. And one place we found most often is Chipotle, because they put so much steel in their buildings, it doesn't connect, and we can't get our app to work. And so we constantly are frustrated because we're not connected. Are you ever aware that you're either connected or not connected to God? If it isn't on your mind, how do you know if you're going to stay connected to Him? And what is the way we are connected to God? Well, that way we're going to see, primarily at this time in our life, is through prayer. And you can tell your spiritual health today by where prayer shows up on your Richter scale of important things. So notice, we're in the second section. We're making progress. Someone said to me yesterday, they said, "You're spending so much time on all these sinful churches." I said, well, yeah, because that's the foundation of this whole book. I'll show you in a minute. But we've gone from Christ Church on earth to, look at this, Christ Church in heaven. The book of Revelation, let me just read it to you instead of telling you. Look at chapter 4. We're in Revelation chapter 4, verse 1. After these things, if you want to understand the book of Revelation, just read it like it's the newspaper. If you read in the Tampa Times, or whatever it's called, that there was all this tour around Turkey of visiting 7 geographic locations, and the very next line in the article said, after these things, you would think what just happened, finished, and now something new is happening. It just means what it says. Some people think the whole book of Revelation is so hard to understand that no one can understand it. Just read it like it's plain English. After these things, I looked. John is actually there. So Jesus is taking him on the tour of those churches, and all of a sudden, after these things, he said he looks, and what happens? And behold, I saw a door standing open. John actually saw, and there are many doors that he sees. So this is just the first one, the first door. The next one's in chapter 6, and we'll be there next week, Lord willing. But I saw a door standing open in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was like a trumpet speaking, saying, "Come up here," now listen to this, "and I will show you the things which must take place after this." After what? Verse 1, after these things. So what we see is, it's a very clear progression between this scene of the island of Patmos and the 7 churches to something that exactly follows it. Now, let me show you what I mean by this slide. Because basically, chapters 1 through 3 are the church on earth, but something happens. A door standing open and a voice saying, "Come up here." What's that? Well, we call that in theology the rapture of the church. Guess what? That word is not in the Bible. The rapture of the church. That is not in the Bible. That's a Latin word. Rapturos is the word. What's the Greek word? That is in the Bible. HARPAZO. What does that sound like? It sounds like a whaler throwing a what? Harpoon. It is, really. It's the very... HARPAZO, harpoon, is the same very direct thought. With a harpoon, you throw it and you pull it back quickly. You're trying to get something out of the water. HARPAZO is God getting something off the earth. And that something is His body, the body of Christ, the church. So what we've done is we've transitioned here from Revelation 1 through 3 to 4 and 5. And the Bible, the entire book of Revelation, is just like what I just showed you. It says this happened, and immediately after that, this happened. And then after that, this happened. And wow, this happened. You see? It's very sequential. It's very following events that are following one another. But why was Revelation given? Revelation was given, I'm going to unplug this so it won't blink anymore. There we go. My computer likes to go into sleep mode. I won't say, because we have our visitors here, What I was going to say is like you do. No, but I won't say that. What is Revelations 1 through 22's message from God to every believer? How to live for God. For them, in an ever-darkening Roman world. The Roman world was getting despotic. That means that the emperors were ruthlessly doing anything they wanted. There was Roman government, that there was a Senate, there were representative bodies, and the emperor basically killed every senator that didn't agree with him. So what you found is if you wanted to live, agree with the emperor, and be in the Senate, and he kind of got 100% vote on everything. That's called being a despotic, autocratic ruler. So in that ever-darkening world where the people were oppressed, they had no rights, the majority of the church were what? Slaves. You understand that? These people didn't get to pick their job. They didn't get to pick where they lived. They had been captured in war or had been hauled away by an occupying army and all sold into slavery. And they worked. Did you know what a slave was in the first century? It's kind of like my, what is this called? It's a Yeti mug. And you would go to the slave market and pick a tool for your estate, for your farm. The tool was a person. A slave was bought because they could carry water, or they could grind something, or they could be a therapist. They could be a lawyer. There were lawyer slaves. There were medical slaves. You understand what I mean? They were just people that did jobs that were owned by the master. Those people were coming to Christ. They were hopeless. When slaves didn't do their job anymore, famously, one of the Roman writers said, this slave owner would throw his old slaves into his fish pond where he raised conger eels. They have teeth, and the eels would eat up the slaves. Boy, did that keep you on your toes. Nobody wanted to get old. They all wanted to, I'm young, I'm going to work. I don't want to get eaten up by that. So how do you live for God in a depressing, hopeless world? That's where they lived. Well, it was written down. See, the Gospels and Epistles. See, the Bible here had been written. So, just for you to understand this chart, here's the cross. Jesus died between 26 and 30 AD. After 40 days after the resurrection, he's on the Mount of Olives. He ascends into heaven. He's gone. But he left behind his 12 apostles. 11, they elected Matthias, and we never hear of him again, but then a biggie comes along, and his name is the apostle what? Paul, yeah. So I know in a question and answer, one of you are going to ask me, who are the 12, foundation stones of heaven? Which apostles' names are on there? I'm not sure. I would say Paul is with the 11, but the Bible doesn't tell us, so just say, I don't know. The Bible doesn't tell us. But here those 12 apostles are going. They launched the first generation church from the day of Pentecost on, and things start getting rough, and by 60 AD, Paul and Peter are rounded up by the government, and most of the rest of the other apostles are hunted down and martyred. And by the time we get to 70 AD, Jerusalem gets destroyed, and 1 million Jews are killed, and the rest sold into slavery. And only one apostle's left, the Apostle John, and he's in exile. That's where Revelation comes. He's on a little island, 10 miles long, 6 miles wide, off the coast of Turkey. And this last book of the Bible, Jesus comes and personally delivers to him, called the Revelation of Jesus Christ. What we already found in the previous 9 sessions is, before Jesus meets him on Patmos, he's already done something. He went to visit the 7 churches to see whether they were reading the Gospels and the epistles and whether they were obeying what God left them to do.